Welcome to Silent Stacks. Here we focus on silently stacking the bag while navigating uncertainty in real time. Welcome to my channel. I post 3 videos per month, one on the 8th, one on the 17th, and one on the 26th of each month. If you find value in my work, feel free to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Let's dive right in. All right, so here we have the Bitcoin chart. The pattern that we've been following played out nicely, and here we are. So now we are in a tricky spot. As I mentioned down here, I did mention that once we pump, there will still be confusion amongst the bulls and the bears. Because when you zoom out, we're still a long way from all-time high. So the bear does have a thesis that this is a relief rally before continuation down. And bulls have a case because we are getting some green price action. So in this video, we're going to analyze a few theses and see which one makes more sense. All right, so let's jump right into the ideas here. So there's two main ideas, and I went over this in a few videos in the past. So let's recap the ideas over here. So there are a few key dates that I want to bring to your attention. Let's go over the first thesis. The first thesis has to do with the mathematics based on the halving. So as you can see, these blue lines are the halving of Bitcoin. And if you go to the monthly and you measure 30 bars from the halving date, you get these yellow lines. And that's what I marked here in the chart. And this yellow line, which is 30 months after halving, tends to be a Bitcoin bottom. So that's the first day I want to bring to your attention. And the next yellow line will be around October 2026 for a potential Bitcoin bottom. Now, thesis number two is a little bit more esoteric. And this is a pattern that I've been observing for a few years now and seeing how Bitcoin reacts in certain astronomical date, and it has to do with the eclipses. So on the past, the lunar phases where the sequences of lunar eclipse tends to be the Bitcoin bear market. And the Bitcoin rally tends to be during a solar eclipse phases where there's sequences of solar eclipse. So if you look back in 2012, the last lunar eclipse was January 2012, and as soon as that happened, Bitcoin rallied. And then into the next lunar phase, that's when Bitcoin stalled. And then October 2015 was the last lunar eclipse. Bitcoin rallied into the next lunar phase, and then Bitcoin stalled. And then February 2019, that was last lunar eclipse in the lunar phase. Bitcoin rallied to the next lunar phase, and then Bitcoin stalled. Bitcoin found a bottom, which happened to be the last lunar eclipse of the lunar phase, and then Bitcoin rallied into the next lunar phase, and then Bitcoin stalled. So the last lunar eclipse of this lunar phase happened to be around March 2026. And usually, what Bitcoin does after the lunar eclipse bottom, it tends to rally until the first solar eclipse. So let me put that in the chart here. All right, so let's zoom in here and I'll show you what I mean. Last lunar eclipse, Bitcoin rallied to the first lunar eclipse. That was in 2012. In 2015, last lunar eclipse, Bitcoin rallied to the first solar eclipse. In 2019, the last lunar eclipse, Bitcoin rallied to the first solar eclipse. In 2022, the last lunar eclipse, Bitcoin rallied to the first solar eclipse. And here we are now. The last lunar eclipse of the lunar phase, Bitcoin is beginning to rally. And the next solar eclipse happens to be August 12th of 2026. And that's what I marked this over here. So the question is, will Bitcoin continue to rally all the way up until the first solar eclipse like previous history? Or will Bitcoin continue following the halving mathematic, which is depicted by this yellow line, and it will mark a bottom? Those are the two predominant theses that we will go over in this video. So we are in the midst of the development of one of the theses, and here we will see which thesis is the accurate one. It will be very easy to tell because one of them has to do with the rally all the way up until the solar eclipse. So if this is the true bottom, we should rally all the way up until the solar eclipse. Very easy to see this projectile. and to see if this is correct. The other one is a little bit more bearish. So if October is the bottom, then there is a chance that there will be some kind of event around the next few weeks that will cause Bitcoin to stumble, and it could stumble pretty aggressively. So I marked about 50K more or less. But if we truly do have a black swan event, then nobody could predict how gruesome this could be. So these are just ballparks level. All right, but the idea is that if October is the bottom, then this low will be swept into a lower level, and then the Bitcoin bottom will be in. So that's what we're monitoring here, and we are in a pivotal point, and that's what these two boxes are. So what I'm trying to say is that on August 2026, we'll either be around 90K or sub 60K. And right now, the time of this recording, we are in a pivotal moment. In the next coming weeks, we will have more clarity. So comment below, do you think Bitcoin already bottomed? Or do you think this is a relief rally for further capitulation that leads us into October of 2026? Now, if we do continue to rally all the way up until the first solar eclipse, then I would be very cautious. So let's say we do rally here all the way till about 100K, more or less. And then after this point, wherever we are, maybe we're only at 90K. Maybe we go to above 100. But around this level, then around the first solar eclipse, I'll be cautious because I do see a stalling, either a correction, testing these levels, holding these levels before continuing higher. So that's the thesis number one. If we do continue to rally, I will start being cautious around July, August, more or less, because I do see a stall happening. And then I'll be more bullish after the second solar eclipse, which happens to be February 2027. That's thesis number one. And this will be the bullish thesis. So we'll have to see, can Bitcoin sustain its rally all the way up until July, August? That'll be the bullish scenery, and that's what we'll be monitoring here. And then the bearish scenery is what I like to call the halving mathematics, and I see a lot of Bitcoin OG leaning towards this thesis. A lot of Bitcoin OG, they really have it in their mind that Bitcoin is going to create a lower low. I'm going to show you some examples. So here we have Carl on the moon. He's a big influence on the Bitcoin community, Bitcoin OG, and he's calling for a sweep of the low around October. Vinci, same thing. He's drawing this pattern over here, and then he's correlating with another bearish flag. He's pointing the divergence over here, and he's targeting lower. And then this is his time thesis, marking a time in the other bottom. And then he's drawing out his thesis of time, which will lead around October. See what I mean? They're all saying the same thing. And then we have Dr. Profit. This is probably one of the most respected one. I don't really take Da Vinci or Carl on the Moon seriously. But one that I do take into consideration is Dr. Profit. And even he's calling the same thing. He's getting prepared to short around this zone and then targeting a lower level around October. And then another one here, Killa. He has this zone over here marking October. So even though I do respect Dr. Profit's analysis, this is probably one of the main one that I'm taking seriously. The fact that a lot of OGs are calling the same thing, even Da Vinci and Carl on the Moon, this makes me a little bit skeptical that all these top OGs are going to lead the mass in the right direction. I have a hard time believing that. So if they're all right, then October will be the bottom. And because we have these top influencers at this point in time calling for lower, makes me lean towards the eclipse idea, which has been my main idea from the get-go. But that being said, I cannot deny the simplicity of the mathematics. So it is a strong case. It is a strong thesis. And we will find out very, very soon in the coming weeks. We will have more clarity on that. And if the bottom is not in, we have to prepare for a scary event. But the fact that we have all these OGs saying we're going to go lower makes me more bullish. I hope that makes sense. Let's go over XRP now. So we have Coin Kids, and a lot of people are saying the same thing with XRP, that we're going to go lower. So it aligns with the Bitcoin idea over here. So more people saying the same thing. And this guy has a big influence as well, 150K followers. And I am not leaning towards this idea, and I'll explain why. This is something that I've been pointing out on this channel for ever since the beginning of this channel. So every time XRP goes to the 200 weekly EMA, it has a reaction back to the 50. It did it over here in 2018, and then after it struggled to get above the 50, then yes, we did have a capitulation below the 200. And here we did it again in 2022. We went to the 200, we had a rally back to the 50, and then when we struggled to get above the 50, we had a capitulation below the 200, and then that's when we accumulated. And here we are now. So I have been calling a bounce just because this is the first touch of the 200. So I've been anticipating a bounce from the 200 to the 50, which is sitting at about 185 right now. So this would be my number one thesis for XRP, a bounce and a relief rally to at least 185, just because of the past history of what it does in the 200. And then if it can't get above the 50, technically, the history shows that it will go below the 200, and that's when we will start accumulating. And that's what a lot of these traders are saying. He's saying XRP has only ever bottomed in macro correction once it has fallen below the monthly ribbon, which has to do with the same level that we went over. So the same idea, the accumulation only happens below this level. But my argument is this. If you zoom out and look at the schematics of things, it's looking like a very strong and simple schematic. You have a buying climax here, a selling climax here, a relief rally that did not break this high. So this is the second test. And then we had a bear market. We found structure here, higher than this structure. And then we shot up into this neck, went higher. And then we had a correction back into this structure, which we are right now. So looking at the schematic of things, it's looking very simple and still holding structure. And if we could hold this level, then the next target will be the launch of the schematic into the target. So that's my argument. And if you study the charts long enough, usually the market makers move in three. And usually by the third point, the pattern tends to break. So I am speculating that the pattern will break this time. And it does not have to do a correction and a longer accumulation below the 200. Why? Because structurally, we are in a bullish posture testing this previous all-time high. We held for a good duration testing this, so this is considered a sign of strength. And then once this backup phase is confirmed, then we shoot up. And this is the Wyckoff trading method. XRP had a high, then it went on a bear market, and then had a second test, and then went on a bear market, and then we shot up past this level. And if you look over here, the sign of strength is testing the previous all-time high. And after the sign of strength, we have what's called the backup phase. Right here, BU is backup phase. Or a last point of support is what I am saying we're doing right now. So this schematic is looking very bullish to me. And that is why I'm saying that XRP could actually break this 50 EMA. And it will not have to go below the 200 EMA for further capitulation. That is what I am speculating based on the sign of strength that we are in right now. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below and I'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think XRP is going to do? Do you think we're going to go lower? Or do you think this is the backup phase for a continuation to the upside? Let me know down in the comments below. So I'm pretty confident that the next move is towards the 50 EMA, but here we will see how price action behaves. We could have a stall here and then a further pullback after we reach the 50, and we'll see what price action does when we're there. The bullish scenery will be more like something like this, which is a small chance. So we rally past the 50 EMA, we have a crazy rally. It depends what XRP decides to do. Around $4 to $5 around July, August, up until the solar eclipse. And then we have a stall, a correction, up until February 2027 when we start to building a bullish posture, and then we continue higher. So it will depend on where we are late July to August. This is just one idea that I have, but this is not my main idea. But I am open to this idea. So wherever we are, late July and early August is when I will determine what we are leaning towards. Either a crazy pump or more of a pump like this. We rally to the 200, we stall around here, and then we go back and create some kind of double bottom, testing the 200 again, and then we continue from that point on. Those are the two series that I have with XRP. But the idea is that we will rally from now until August. And then we'll see where we are August. We'll see where Bitcoin is August, because remember, we're either going to be higher or lower. It's either all the OG theses are broken, the mathematic is broken. Bitcoin finally does something that it hasn't done before, which has already been showing sign, which I'm not going to get too much on this video, or it's going to get too long. But there's a lot of patterns are already broken. All right, last cycle, Bitcoin broke a lot of pattern. That's why this one makes a lot of sense, because it has not broken the eclipse thesis yet. Those are the two theses that we are maneuvering in this channel, and we will take it week by week. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you found value, make sure you like the video. I post 3 videos per month, one on the 8th, one on the 17th, and one on the 26th of each month. So if you like my work, make sure you subscribe and stay tuned. You can also follow me on X at 24/7stacks for quicker updates. I am growing this account. You are in the right place at the right time. Until next time, take care.